Okay. So if I killed this, you'd have like 1 million blockers.
I would have 240 blockers.
On today's Big Deck Energy, we're talking about Blackneto, aka Joe Johnson's Teysa Karlov. Besides being an all-around good dude who gets dragged on Reddit sometimes for questionable reasons, Joe has a lot going on. Besides getting plenty of screen time in TV shows and movies, you'll find him at lots of Commander tables online. He's made the rounds and has his own channel, Tabletop Jocks. You should go check it out. He's brought plenty of big names to gameplay tables online, but that's enough about him. Let's get to his Teysa Karlov deck. Teysa, if you're nasty. Teysa at the Met Gala, he's had several iterations. Teysa Karlov, of course, cares about death triggers because she doubles those triggers, and she also helps out creature tokens by giving them vigilance and lifelink. Joe's built this deck to be commander-centric, focusing on Karlov's strengths, but we'll let him say it himself.
It's just original aristocrats. You know how it goes. Sack a lot of things, get blood artist triggers, Teysa's ability resolves twice, and try to drain my opponents out. Politic.
Now, just like any other commander deck, we got to go fast. So instead of ramp, we're going to rock and ritual our way to get there. Joe has 7 different cards that'll help us out. Black Market Connection stands out the best. You're going to be sending this full send a lot because you get tokens here. Some shapeshifter tokens are always great, and the card draw. Speaking of draw, we also stuff a lot more draw into this deck. We have 6 cards that give us good value on draw that don't hurt us, including the Good Commissar, who in aristocrat fashion lets you sacrifice to draw a card. And we have a few painful ways to draw cards as well, hoping that some life gain and lifelink will help, balance these cards out so we don't kill ourselves. Now we're at the meat and potatoes part of the deck where we're making tokens. And we have Shadrix in here as one of the 6 creatures that'll help us make tokens, and it's a spicy pick because it lets you do a lot of different things. We also have plenty of token generators and some instants that'll help us, including Ink Shield, one of my favorites, because it's a protection card and it can win you the game. And some big bombs for this deck are Procession and Glory Dominus, who is going to be incredibly hard to get rid of for your opponents because you're going to have the tokens to be able to make him indestructible pretty much on a whim. So these 2 token doublers definitely do work in a Teysa deck. Speaking of doubling, let's get back to Teysa's main ability, death trigger doubling. You got a lot of those aristocrat ping staples in here that are going to help you ping opponents or the entire table. And we have even more death trigger fun in here, including Drivnod, who also doubles death triggers. So he's another bomb in this deck. Now, we're not going to wait for our opponents to kill our creatures. We're going to take matters into our own hands with a couple of altars and a Yahini. And to complement all of our token generation, we're also going to have a few ETB effects in here. So Yara and Corpse Knight can still do work even though they're not death triggers. After that, we're going to start getting interactive with some removal. Joe's got 4 different removal in here. We count the OG Elish Norn as removal, Kaya's Guile, Loran, and the Meat Hook Massacre, which can also help us ping our opponents to death. But Blackneto doesn't have a glass cannon here. We also have some protection effects. We're going to be able to phase out our creatures pretty easily with Teferi's protection and clever concealment, or we can just make them indestructible if we need to, and if we have our commander on the table, it makes it even easier with flawless maneuver. And we have 1 card that'll help us get things out of our graveyard, Yawgmoth's Will, and then we have 4 tutors. Demonic Tutor right here wins the award for creepiest print with the little baby, and Enlightened Tutor, Grim Tutor, and Vampiric Tutor all help us get the cards that we need. Now, besides aristocrat triggers, which usually win the game, Joe also has a few cards in here that's meant to speed that up, including Living Death, which will help you stack the triggers, and Post Citadel, Bolas' Citadel, which will let you just tap all your tokens if they can't get through and chunk the whole board for 10 life at a time. And Sarah Ascendant is also in here, which will really accelerate and cause some tempo issues for slower decks if you have it in your opening hand. Mr. Johnson's running a solid Orzhov land base in here with a lot of the staples, including a blinged out Godless Shrine, that little planet. That's looking pretty cool. He also has the Cabal Coffers and Urberg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, which always pair very well together. And he runs 7 fetch lands to help thin his deck. I'm a big fan of running even off-color fetch lands. to, you know, get rid of lands out of your deck so you're less likely to draw them. And Joe ain't no broke joke. The target of all those fetch lands is going to be this scrub land. It's a lot of money, but he's going to pick that up first from his fetch lands, and then after that he's going to get either one of the 7 plains or 8 swamps. And, you know, the black and white treatment on these things is just chef's kiss. Now, I touched on it before, but I think the spiciest card out of this 99 is Ink Shield. Ink Shield does work. It's not in a lot of Teysa decks, surprisingly, but it should be. I mean, this thing can catch the board off guard. It can catch your opponents off guard. It gives you protection. It's a perfect card for this deck, and it's a spicy pick. And for Evan's pick, he's picking Psychological Warfare. I mean, if you drop this print of Demonic Tutor on other players, they're just going to be, it doesn't matter what you pull out of your deck. It's, you've already committed the sin. The Creepy Baby is just going to put them in a different frame of mind. Sure, you might get targeted a little harder, but once you drop the Creepy Baby on the board, it's tough to come back for your opponents. Now, Joe's running a tight list here, but if I had to pick one card to cut, it's going to be Elspeth. I don't think it's the best Elspeth for this deck, and I don't think really any Planeswalkers needed. There's plenty of other good cards to pick from that could be more impactful. Elspeth's kind of a toolkit, and it might be just kind of, you know, a pet Planeswalker. A lot of people like to include a Planeswalker in all their decks, so I would remove that one. Evan doesn't particularly like the Serra Ascendant. It doesn't really fit any strategy other than the life gain. It can affect tempo pretty quickly, but otherwise it's not really helping you out as far as the Orzhov aristocrat strategy. One card that I think is missing from this deck that's in a lot of aristocrat strategies is Phyrexian Tower. It's a legendary land, so you can only put 1 in here, but it's also a sack outlet, and it'll help you stretch a little bit to hit one of those bombs slightly earlier. And Evan's wondering where the Skull Clamp is at. I mean, this deck creates so many different tokens, and it's trying to sacrifice a lot of different creatures. Skull Clamp just gets you insane value out of that. It'll help you find all sorts of answers in your deck, help you sift through your deck and draw through half your deck in a game with enough tokens. Give us a subscribe. We're breaking down interesting people's decks. Evan's working on some budget brews. We got a lot cooking up. Thank you for watching this. We couldn't do it without all of our subscribers. And thanks to Joe Johnson, who's, I mean, you're probably already following him. He's everywhere. If you aren't following him, go find him. He's, you know, on all the social channels and over at Tabletop Jocks. So big thanks to Joe Johnson, and we'll see you next time.